If you teach students in grades 6 through 12, you have probably encountered students who can read the words on a page but struggle to explain what the text means. They may read fluently but miss the main idea. They may understand a short passage but become overwhelmed by a textbook chapter. They may struggle with academic vocabulary, complex sentences, inferences, text structures, or written arguments. By secondary school, these students are often labeled as unmotivated, careless, or unwilling to read. But in many cases, the problem is not the effort. The problem is that students have reached secondary school with reading gaps that are never fully identified or addressed. In this video, we are going to examine why these gaps occur and how the secondary reading blueprint can help teachers provide a more focused, effective reading intervention program. Before we begin, welcome. This channel is for grades 6 through 12 teachers who want practical, research-aligned strategies for identifying reading gaps and helping struggling readers build the skills they need for success. Be sure to subscribe and follow the Secondary Reading Blueprint series, and let's get started. Now, reading is not one skill. The first thing we need to understand is that reading is not a single skill. Strong reading requires students to coordinate many different abilities. Students must be able to read words accurately and efficiently, understand vocabulary and word parts, make sense of complex sentences, monitor their own comprehension, identify how a text is organized, connect ideas across the passage, determine important information, make inferences, evaluate claims and evidence, interpret literature. A student may be successful in one of these areas and still have significant difficulty in others. For example, a student may read every word correctly but fail to understand the sentence. Another student may understand the individual sentences but struggle to connect the ideas across entire passages. When we treat reading as one general ability, we can easily miss the specific skill that is preventing the student from understanding. So reason number one, early gaps become larger. Many secondary reading difficulties begin with skills that are not fully developed in earlier grades. A student may have learned enough decoding to get through simple text, but never developed the automatic word reading skills needed for longer academic words. Another student may know common vocabulary but struggle to use prefixes, suffixes, Greek and Latin roots, and context clues to determine the meanings of unfamiliar words. These gaps may seem small at first, however, they become more serious as text becomes longer, denser, and more specialized. When students must spend too much mental energy identifying words or untangling sentences, they have fewer mental resources available for comprehension. The original gap does not disappear. It becomes buried beneath the increasing demands of secondary level reading. Reason number two, reading demands change. The transition to secondary school creates a major shift in what students are expected to read. Students encounter science explanations, historical documents, mathematical word problems, arguments, technical directions, informational articles, and increasingly complex literature. Each subject uses different vocabulary, structures, and ways of communicating information. Students are no longer expected only to understand what the text says. They must also analyze how ideas are developed, compare resources, evaluate evidence, recognize bias, interpret figurative language, and draw conclusions. A student who appeared to be reading successfully in the elementary grades may begin to struggle when these demands increases. The student has not suddenly lost the ability to read. The reading task has changed, and the student may not have the strategies needed to meet these new demands. So reason number three, students learn to hide their difficulties. By the time the students reach middle or high school, many have become very skilled at hiding their reading struggles. They may avoid reading aloud, copying answers from the text, wait for someone else to respond, rely on videos or summaries, or say that they simply do not care. Some students rush through assignments, others shut down before they begin. Some become disruptive when they are asked to complete a reading task. These behaviors look like motivation or behavior problems, but they may actually be forms of avoidance. If a student has struggled with reading for years, refusing to participate may feel safer than allowing classmates or teachers to see the struggle. That is why effective intervention begins with looking beyond the behavior and asking, what part of this reading task is creating the barrier? So, reason number 4, intervention is often too general. Another challenge is that secondary reading intervention is sometimes too broad. Students may be told to read carefully, slow down, use context clues, or find the main idea. These directions tell students what they should accomplish, but they do not always teach them how to do it. Students may also be placed in a general reading program without first determining which skills they actually need. But students with different reading difficulties require different instruction. A student who struggles to decode multisyllabic words does not need the same starting point as a student who can decode accurately but cannot identify an author's claim. Effective intervention must be targeted. It should identify the missing skill, explicitly teach that skill, provide guided practice, gradually move the student toward independent application. Now, reason number 5, secondary teachers need practical support. Secondary teachers are often expected to address reading difficulties without being given enough time, training, or intervention materials. Content area teachers must teach their subject standards. Special education and intervention teachers may work with students whose reading levels and needs vary dramatically. English language arts teachers must balance literature, informational text, writing, vocabulary, and assessment requirements. Teachers know that their students need reading support. The challenge is determining where to begin and how to fit that support into an already crowded instructional schedule. Teachers need a clear instructional pathway, not another collection of disconnected activities. The solution begins with identifying the gap. Students do not need more random reading practice. They need instruction connected to their specific skill that is limiting their comprehension. That means we must move beyond asking, is this student below grade level? Instead, we need to ask, does the student struggle to read unfamiliar words? Is academic vocabulary creating the barrier? Can the student make sense of complex sentences? Does the student recognize when comprehension breaks down? Can the student follow the organization of a text? Can the student connect ideas and draw conclusions? Can the student evaluate claims, evidence, and reasoning? Can the student analyze important elements of literature? Those questions gives us information we can use to plan the instruction. The Secondary Reading Blueprint was created to give grades 6 through 12 teachers a structured way to identify and address students' reading needs. The program organizes literacy instruction into 9 connected blueprints. So Blueprint 1, Building Strong Readers, establishes reading routines, assessment practices, comprehension habits, confidence, and progress monitoring systems. Blueprint number 2 unlocks words and language strengthen word analysis, morphology, vocabulary, fluency, academic language, and sentence level comprehension. Blueprint number 3, understanding complex text, teaches students to monitor comprehension, analyze text structures, connect ideas, summarize information, and understand increasingly difficult passages. Blueprint number 4, thinking critically with informational text, develops students' ability to evaluate claims, evidence, reasoning, bias, author perspectives, and media passages. Blueprint 5, understanding literature strengthens literacy comprehension through character analysis, theme, point of view, symbolism, plot, structure, and evidence-based interpretation. Blueprint 6, writing about reading teaches students to cite textual evidence, explaining their thinking, organizing analytical paragraphs, and develop effective reading responses. Blueprint 7, research and media literacy helps students evaluate sources, recognize misinformation, conduct reasonable research, and examine digital information critically. Blueprint 8, reading across the curriculum, teaches students to apply effective reading strategies in science, history, mathematics, technical subjects, and other content areas. Blueprint 9, preparing for success, helps students to build reading stamina, prepare for assessments, and apply their literacy skills in college, the workplace, and everyday life. Together, these 9 blueprints provide a pathway for foundational reading intervention to independent literacy application. This organization allows teachers to locate a student's specific point of need and provide focused instruction instead of relying on a one-size-fits-all intervention system. Teachers can follow the complete sequence or select the blueprints, units, and lessons that best address their student needs. The lessons are designed specifically for secondary students. Students receive direct explanations, teacher monitoring, modeling, guided practice, collaboration opportunities, and independent application. Skills are broken down into manageable steps without making the instruction feel childish. The goal is not to take students backwards. The goal is to identify the missing building blocks and teach them in a way that helps students successfully access secondary level text. The secondary reading blueprint can support whole class instruction, small group intervention, special education, tutoring, or targeted skill review. Teachers can use the complete sequence or select the units and lessons that match their students' needs. Reading struggles are not a dead end. When students reach secondary school with reading difficulties, it can feel as though there is too much ground to recover. But secondary students can continue developing as readers when instruction is explicit, focused, and appropriately scaffolded. These students do not need us to assume they are incapable of understanding complex ideas. They need us to determine what is standing between them and the text and then teach them how to overcome that barrier. Students reach secondary school without proficient reading skills for many different reasons. Some have unfinished foundational skills. Some struggle with the increased complexity of academic text. Some have learned to hide their difficulties, and others have reached their interventions that do not match their actual needs. The answer is not simply to assign more reading. The answer is to identify the gap, teach them the missing skill explicitly, and give students supported opportunities to apply that skill until they can use it independently. That is the purpose of the Secondary Reading Blueprint. Throughout this video series, we will explore how to recognize specific reading difficulties, choose the right interventions starting point, and provide practical instruction that helps secondary students become stronger, more confident, and more independent readers. Subscribe to the HelpULearn channel and follow the Secondary Reading Blueprint series as we build a clear path to support struggling readers in grades 6 through 12. If this video helped you better understand why so many students reach secondary school with unfinished reading skills, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. For more practical, research-aligned strategies for identifying reading gaps and providing targeted interventions in grades 6 through 12, visit HelpULearn.org to learn more about the Secondary Reading Blueprint. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video in this series.